In this video, I'm going to be explaining the common signs and common symptoms related to dyspraxia. What is dyspraxia, I hear some of you asking? Well, that's my reason for this video, and that's coming up right now. Okay, dyspraxia. What is it? What can we do about it? Is it curable? How do I know I've got it? What are the symptoms? Who do I speak to? These are all questions that have been asked about, and are still asked about dyspraxia. Some of them I've been asked myself. Now this is a follow-up to a previous video. Check it out up here when I mentioned mental health, and I did mention the fact that I suffer from ADHD and dyspraxia, thus leading to some of the questions I've just asked. But what is it? Well, it's a neurological condition which affects coordination and learning. And it's often, especially in previous years, I mean, I'm from that generation where growing up there wasn't a lot known about neurological conditions, and such as autism, ADHD, dyspraxia. But anyway, I'm from that generation where we didn't know a lot about it, and I'm still finding out a lot of it now. It was often thought in previous years that people with dyspraxia and people with dyslexia, which isn't the same thing, but there are similarities. And as we go through some of the symptoms and signs, you may notice that. So what may be? Oh yeah, I think yeah, that sounds like something I do. May not necessarily be dyspraxia. It could be dyslexia. It could be both. It could be something else. The brain's a very complicated thing, but long story short, because I've been waffling on quite a bit here, dyspraxia is, as I said, it's a neurological condition and it's a learning thing. And it was often thought in the past that people who had this were stupid or lazy or clumsy, all of the above, because this condition affects the learning and it affects the coordination and the processing of information and so on, hence the coordination. And as such, it can take a little bit longer for someone with dyspraxia to learn things, especially if it's physical. Then it can take even longer because it affects very much their coordination and their balance. My balance is terrible, but then I've got a problem with my hearing that I've had since birth as well. So to be honest, a lot of it was blamed on that. They thought, oh, it's an inner ear thing. That's why your balance is away. No, my balance is bad because of my dyspraxia. I've got very poor coordination. So that's one. So yes, that's one of the first signs and first symptoms related to dyspraxia. Is poor coordination, poor balance. Both of those, or one of those, is it can may no guarantee. So again, don't quote me, but it's one of the common symptoms related with dyspraxia. So that's number one. And on the subject with coordination and balance, yeah, it can also be because of that, like especially in children, like small, like babies basically. It can all, because of that, it means that it can take them a long time to walk. Case in point, when I was a baby, now obviously I don't remember this, but I'm told by my parents and from relatives and friends of the family that when I was a baby, I originally used to crawl about, and my mother describes it. I used to crawl sideways like a crab, which was quite unusual. But it was quite amusing to watch at the same time. Which, because no one knew that it was because of a neurological condition, it was thought that it was a bit odd, but it was just, it was nothing was really thought of it, but it took a long time when I was a child for me to actually, and even then it was just, I just got up one day and walked. I just got up one day and went, okay, I'm going for a walk. So, your child will get there, but it just might take a little bit longer because of, it takes long, because, as I explained, it takes a bit longer for people with dyspraxia to learn these things and to process them. But it's not because they're stupid. Case in point, Albert Einstein had dyspraxia. Was he stupid? No, he wasn't. Okay, so that was one symptom that I mentioned there. But there are other symptoms, and they can vary, and some of them can even develop as the child ages, and some of the things that might have affected them when they were small may affect them differently as they get older, or not at all. It's, as I said, the brain's a very, very complicated thing, and this has been true in my case. Some of the things I used to do when I was a young child, I don't do now, and there's things that I did that are kind of, they're not the same, but you've kind of developed into other version 2, if you like. That's about, I know it sounds like a weird description, but one of them, for instance, like if your child, when they're at their meal, they prefer to eat with their fingers rather than use a knife or fork, and they're quite a messy eater, then I mean, there's no guarantee. It could just be that that's how they prefer to eat. It might be nothing. So, if your child is doing that, don't immediately assume that it's related to some neurological condition or dyspraxia. As I said, these are some of this. These are possible symptoms, but they're not like, they're not guaranteed. It's not, if your child's doing this, you've got dyspraxia. No. No. They may have dyspraxia. Again, you'll have to speak to your doctor to confirm that. But if they, because kids with ADHD have those symptoms too. So, I mean, that's another reason, as I said, don't automatically assume because your child's doing that it's dyspraxia. Delays with toilet training is another one. I don't think I had that problem personally, but I can't remember. Although I do know a story that my mother told me that apparently I never used to sit on the pole. I used to use it as a little helmet. I mean, it was clean. Of course, it was clean. I never used it, but yeah, I used to use it as a little soldier's helmet, rather than actually sit on it, because I didn't like sitting on the cold plastic. If your child has difficulty with toilet training, it could be related to one of these conditions. Can't play ball or ride a tricycle. Yes, not necessarily a bicycle, although a bicycle would be even more difficult. I would assume, it was in my case. It took me a long time to learn to ride a bike when I was a kid. Anything like that requires some sort of concentration and some sort of coordination, it's going to be difficult for your child. And if your child has difficulty with that, and as I said, if they appear a little bit clumsy, maybe a bit disorientated, then it could be, and in the cases I've just mentioned, there's a high likelihood it could be related to dyspraxia. Not playing with puzzles or construction type toys, anything that's anything of that thing, like puzzle, a Rubik's Cube, Meccano, anything like that, there's, your child may not want to do that because it's, they don't have the, it's not that they don't have the mental capacity, because as I said, Einstein suffered from dyspraxia, so so he certainly had the mental capacity, but it's not necessarily because they don't, they don't have the mental capacity to do it, and quite often they do, but it's the lack of coordination and the fact that, especially Meccano, it can be quite fiddly, and we just don't have the patience for that, basically. So it's like, don't want to play with that, I'll play with that instead. So again, it might not definitely be dyspraxia, but something to think about. This next one is something I can relate to personally. I actually had to. I actually learned to sign as a child, and I went through years of speech therapy. That, as I had difficulty forming my words, and I used to stutter as well. So, but the next one, yes, if your child has difficulty with communication, verbal communication, and has difficulty talking, perhaps has a stutter, a lisp, a stutter and a lisp, which is possible, some sort of speech thing, or may only speak in single words or syllables until about the age of 3 or 4, then it may be a sign of autism, or it may be a sign of dyspraxia. Yes, I mean, this is that I can relate to that personally. So again, if your child displays any of those symptoms, they may or may not have dyspraxia. So that's childhood. Now on to pre-adolescence. Okay, adolescence. Does your child have a desire to not take part or to avoid gym class, sports days, any kind of physical activity like that? Then again, this is a possible sign of dyspraxia, because as I stated earlier, if your child, and even later on when they get older, if they have difficulty with coordination and with physical activity, then it stands to reason that they're going to want to avoid said physical activity, because it's especially in a school environment where where you get bullied for things like that. You certainly do. I did. You're going to want to avoid that situation by all means. So if your child does that, it could be a sign, and it could be related to the fact that they have dyspraxia. Does your child have difficulty with writing, forming letters and numbers, and not anything related to that, not necessarily handwriting, although your messy handwriting will relate to that, but there's some great people out there, very clever people, who don't have any of these neurological conditions and they've got messy handwriting. So again, don't take that as a guarantee. But if there's difficulty with writing, and you've got messy handwriting, difficulty with spelling, difficulty forming letters and working with numbers, difficulty with typing or texting, it could be dyspraxia, or it could be dyslexia. It could even be both. Again, if you or your child is shown any of those symptoms and and you're concerned about it, then by all means speak to a medical expert. Don't go looking on the net, because to be honest with you, you can if you want, and it will give you symptoms. But there is as I said earlier, there is a lot of hocus sites out there. Or I think I said hokey pokey, but you know, there's a lot of sites out there where the information isn't necessarily accurate. So, speak to an expert. Because even speaking to me, okay, I live with it, but I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. Speak to a doctor. They'll tell you. Moving objects around. Now, some of you, or even you yourself watching this, might say, is that not OCD? And yes, it is, to an extent, because it can also relate with other conditions. Yes, OCD is a neurological condition as well, by the way. But it can also relate to other neurological conditions. Again, if you or your child's got a habit of moving things around, or they've got a set way, you know, everything's got its place. And I mean, I do this. I do this. Everything's got a certain place, and if it gets moved even the slightest wee bit, I get quite agitated about it, and it's even the same when I go shopping. And my mother will tell you this: if I'm doing the shopping and I'm packing the bags, and I've got my set way of doing it, and if she still does it sometimes. I think she does it just to if I'm packing the bag and I'm putting stuff in the bag, and if she then like puts a block of cheese or a yogurt or whatever into that bag while I'm in the middle of doing it, because I've got my own system, I don't like it, and I get agitated. And I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And you know, and I have. I mean, I've lost my temper with her a couple of times with that. You know, and yes, it's a bit OCD, but it's apparently it's because of dyspraxia. So yes, if you're doing any of that, and if any of what I'm saying went off on a tangent there, sorry. If any of what I'm saying sounds familiar and you have concerns, speak to an expert. Speak to an expert and get the help you need. Now, the next one on the list, and it's something that can, as I said, I'm mentioning with younger and grade school ages because this is when they can manifest, but I mean, this can affect you all your life. And in some cases, it can even manifest younger, but it most commonly manifests around that age. And anyway, the next one is difficulty with directions and following directions. And I do this myself, even now. If I'm in, especially if I'm in surroundings that I'm not familiar with, that can get really confusing. And even if you say to me, or perhaps if I stop a local and say, right, how do you get to the town hall? Oh, and they'll say, oh, you go down that street there, you turn left, you walk on, you'll see the post office, you turn right at the post office, so on and so on. That's all very well, but about 2 minutes after he said that, I forgot, and then I'll go right down the end of that road. Was it a left or was it right? And quite often I'll take a right where I should have went left, or completely forget, or was it straight on? or even go back down the street where I came from to ask this gentleman again, right, could you tell me that one more time because I forgot? And they'll look at you like, I've just told you 2 minutes ago. Yeah, I know, but I've forgotten that space of time. And they look at you like you're nuts. They look at you like you're nuts or you're stupid or because they don't understand. That it's not something I can help. And about you're so very well telling me, but I'll forget about 5 minutes later. Tip for that: write it down. It's there in front of you. Although it can relate to the other problem with difficulty with writing, and again, it's a bit of a catch-20. A bit catch-20, catch-22. What's the expression? You know the one I'm talking about. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. There's another cliche we can use. Yes, write it down for me. I'll remember it. But if I can't bloody read it, then we're still up the creek without a paddle. But anyway, if you have difficulty with directions and following directions, or if your child has that, it may or may not be related to dyspraxia and the way the brain processes that information and the way the brain gets mixed up with directions. And it's related to, and it can relate to that as well, because I, as a toddler, had difficulty with left and right. I did, and I can actually, now that I think about it, I'm getting this little memory wafting in here in the breeze, and it's and I remember this. I'm remembering this this asking my dad what one's left, what one's right, and my dad getting quite frustrated. Because he's explained it to me about 5 or 6 times, and I'm still going left, right, Again, dyspraxia does that. Next, weak muscle tone or weak muscle structure or lack of. Now, I can totally relate to this. Now, I've never been the best athlete anyway, but a few years ago I was doing wrestling and doing wrestling training. You wouldn't think it to look at me. I mean, look. I mean, the arms. There's a little. There's a little bit of definition there, but considering I used to spend every day and several hours a day every day training, there's really not much definition there to show for it, is there? But again, that's because of the dyspraxia, and again, it's one of the symptoms that you can, and that's another reason why it can frustrate people with dyspraxia, because even when we do get finally manage to get the motivation to do some exercise, because we all need to exercise, and we get there and we spend hours in the gym pumping weights, and you're seeing all your mates, they're getting like, they're getting ripped, and you're doing the same work or twice as much work. That looked a bit rude. And there's the result. You know what I mean? It's like, But that's why. And I could never understand it. And I'll be honest with you, I only recently discovered that was one of the symptoms, that was one of the side effects of dyspraxia, was lack of muscle definition. I only recently discovered that, but it does explain why I used to get frustrated. I'd spend hours training with these guys, and they were all big guys. I'm no Slim Jim, I'm no small fry myself, but I would spend hours in the gym training with these guys, and they were all getting they were all getting pretty ripped. And I'm doing, hang on, I'm doing twice as much work as this guy and getting nothing. That's why. Going from that into high school and into adulthood, again, issues with sports and physical activity. Yep, we mentioned that previously. Again, it's all related. You know, obviously, if you've got problems with coordination, coordinations with balance, coordination of processing, lack of muscle definition, all these things are going to add up, and they're going to cost. They're going to give you a massive weight on your ego. That's the expression for. It's like, you know, it's like a massive weight pushing down on that ego, and it's, you know, and I say that it's causing that extra frustration because, even as I said, once we do finally, you know, get, and it takes a long time, but once we do finally get that motivation, right, I'm going to do some exercise. You know, because of the lack of definition, nothing to show for it. So it's like, well, that puts a downer on you as well, because you think, well, I'm spending all these hours in the gym, I'm getting nowhere. And then you quit going to the gym, and you start eating, and you get fat. It's a double-edged. It really is a double-edged sword. Next up, a common one. I do this myself. Case in point, I've done this several times while I've been filming this, and I've had to cut this out, or at the time this goes out, I'll have edited it out. It's still there at the moment, and I may possibly upload those. I might do that later as a little highlight reel. Hey, look at me. What am I talking about? Bumping into things, falling over things, stumbling on your words, and general, overall clumsiness. What a lot of people relate to as clumsiness. And it is clumsiness, but it's because, as I said, it's dyspraxia. We can't coordinate. Our brain doesn't coordinate the same way as you guys. We can't coordinate, and we can't balance the same way as what the average Joe or Jane on the street does. Hi Joe. Hi Jane. Sorry. But that's about the size of it. So if you or your child has that again, it's dyspraxia. We do that. We're quite clumsy. We bump into things. I've done it several times. I'm going to continue to keep doing it. I just know it. And I can see that falling, and it's my OCD kicking in. There we go. It's not the best tripod, this one. I'm going to have to get a better one. But yes, that's one of the common traits with dyspraxia. Because, as I said, because of the symptoms we mentioned earlier. I mean, they all link into each other. They all link into each other. Synergy, science. So if you do have difficulty with what I've mentioned there, then see someone. Next, losing things and forgetting things. Yep, I've done that on purpose. But joking aside, it's quite a serious thing, and it's one of the symptoms related with several neurological conditions, not just dyspraxia, ADHD, autism, loads of them. Other ones that I don't even know the name of. And obviously some of the other ones that are more common that are a bit more serious, like dementia and so on. You know, if you're noticing those signs, speak to a doctor. Because I mean, it could just be something like dyspraxia, which it's not. This is going to sound harsh, but I mean, it's someone that suffers from it. It's not the end of the world if it's dyspraxia, but if it's something more serious, then it needs to be addressed. So, if you're noticing those symptoms, speak. I mean, of all of these are important in their own way, but this one especially for reasons I've just stated. If you have problems with forgetting things, losing things, I urge you to speak to someone, because it may just be something simple as dyspraxia, but then it may also be signs of something more serious. And I don't want to panic any of you watching this, but speak to someone. Just for peace of mind anyway. And the next one is something that is common not just with dyspraxia but with various things, and this one's probably most commonly associated with autism. I'm talking about failure or difficulty with understanding verbal signals and communication, and understanding and picking up on things like emotions and things like that. Indie Andy, who has a program about autism, and I'm going to do a card to that, because seriously, even if you don't have autism, but because there is similarities with dyspraxia and other things, do take a look at his channel, because it's really fascinating stuff. But he made the same point, and I'm going to make now, that it's difficult when you have one of these neurological conditions to pick up on verbal cues and signals and emotions. So someone may look happy to you, but not necessarily to someone with dyspraxia or autism or one of these some other neurological condition where those symptoms are related. So as a result, it's very difficult when communicating with people and talking to people, especially in groups where you've got loads of different emotions. And for that reason, it can also mean that, and this is something personally, it makes that person reluctant to speak to people, and they get anxious and nervous speaking to people, and quite often avoid speaking to people or going in areas where there's going to be large amounts of people for that reason. And it's also why, and again, Indie Andy mentioned this, it's why we quite often, when we're in the shops doing our shopping, we tend to pick the smaller line, or better still, self-scan. That way we don't it's a machine. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have that awkwardness of trying to make a conversation when you don't really understand, or at least I don't, how to hold a conversation, because especially having the combination with the dyspraxia, where I don't pick up auto cues, and then I've got the ADHD where I don't have a filter. So it means it makes things even more difficult, because I don't pick up on visual or audio clues in the conversation or emotions, and because I don't have that filter, I'm also at the likelihood that when I do think, right, this is probably I should probably say something here, so that there's not these long awkward pauses. I should probably say something here, but then again, I've got the habit of saying something that isn't necessarily appropriate. in that conversation for whatever reason. And again, I don't know I'm doing it, but then I see the reaction. Did he just say that? What did I say that was so bad, you know? It gets awkward. But anyway, waffling on again. Visual cues, audio cues, emotions, things like that that come into the everyday conversation are very difficult for people with dyspraxia and other neurological conditions to pick up on, and it makes things very awkward. So we quite often tend to avoid speaking to people altogether. It's not that we're antisocial. Well, I suppose you could say it is antisocial, but we're not being deliberately antisocial. It's just it's easier for me or people suffering with this than, yeah, you know. So those were all, and I'm sorry if this video was slightly longer than expected. Those were all common signs and symptoms, and a wee bit of backstory for you. I do go on a bit related to dyspraxia. I do hope this video was helpful to you or to someone you know. Please do share this out if you know someone, or if you think you know, or if you think you know someone who may be experiencing some of these symptoms and you feel that this video may help them. Please do share it. Get this, get the message out there. Same with the other video I did. Please help get my message out there. Spread the message of mental health. Try and get rid of the stigma on mental health. This is something that needs to be talked about. It's not talked about often enough. As I said previously, you do not need to be ashamed. And this is especially more common in men. It seems to be this stigma, this thing that, and it's been like that for ages. And I mean, frankly, it needs to change. I mean, it's common in men and women, but it seems to be more common with men. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the stigmatisation. The thing is that, you don't talk about things like this, and you don't show your emotions. And men shouldn't cry because it shows weakness. That's not the case. There's nothing wrong with a man crying if he needs to. There's nothing wrong with a man speaking about his feelings. There's nothing wrong with a man showing his emotions. It's when you bottle all this stuff inside, that's going to do more damage than speaking out. And as I said in the previous video, that's the stuff that will finish you off. I've seen it so many times, sadly, and I've lost a lot of friends simply because they chose to bottle it up until it was too late to speak out. Don't do that.